Hi, I'm Jeff Spees with Quick Mount PV, and welcome to our first video blog. Today we wanted to show you an installation in Costa Mesa in Southern California where we experienced several challenges that solar installers may run into from time to time. In the first part of this video series, we'd like to take a look at rafter finding on a challenging roof type. On this roof, we have solid wood sheathing installed over the top of an old skip-sheathed roof, and this makes rafter finding much more challenging. Prior to the mid-'80s, roofers would install wood shake or wood shingle or tile to skip sheathing, which is nothing more than 1x6 wood boards that are attached to the rafters with several inches of space in between the individual pieces of skip sheathing. In the 1980s, building code changed and required that all skip sheathed roofs have solid wood sheathing installed over the top of the skip sheathing. So in this video, we're going to review the 4 basic methods of finding rafters: visual location, echolocation, exploratory drilling, and electronic stud finders. There's 2 basic ways to visually locate rafters. The first is fairly straightforward, where you're looking for the rafter at the eave or the nail that might be connected to that rafter in the fascia. The second method of visual locating the rafter would be getting into the attic and mapping the rafters with a tape measure, where you'll measure the distance between the rafters at the bottom row of the array, at the center of the array, and at the top row of the array, and then you'll translate those dimensions to the top of the roof. To make transferring the dimensions from the attic to the roof easy, you can take a long drill bit and drill next to the rafter through the roofing material, but remember to leave that drill bit sticking through the roof so you can find it when you go to the top of the roof to start your transferring of dimensions. There are 2 primary ways of using echolocation to locate rafters from on top of the roof. The first is called the roof dance, and that entails shifting your weight from one foot to the other, looking for the areas of the roof that are most solid. And this is a reasonably decent method of getting a general location of the rafter. The other method of using echolocation is using a hammer. I prefer a rubber mallet to minimize damage to the shingles, and you'll tap across the surface of the roof, listening and feeling for where the roof seems most solid. Yeah, it's definitely solid. So right around here is our rafter. Unfortunately, on skip sheath roofs that have solid wood sheathing installed over the top, echolocation just isn't a very good method of finding rafters, because you have those voids between the skip sheathing that prevent you from getting a really good echolocation from the hammer tapping or the roof dance. The third method of finding rafters is exploratory drilling, where you'll get a general idea of the rafter location through the roof dance or hammer tapping, and then you'll take an 1/8 inch diameter drill bit and drill just to the right or left of the rafter. It's pretty clear on a standard roof if you've hit the rafter or not. If you don't hit the rafter, you would then remove the drill bit and move over 1/4 to 1/3 of an inch and drill another hole through the sheathing, and you might hit the rafter, the edge of the rafter, and now you have a pretty good sense of where that edge of rafter is. You'll move over the requisite distance and then drill the hole for your penetration. Don't worry about those 1 or 2 extra holes that you're drilling, because your flashing is going to be installed right in that area and will protect those areas from any water intrusion. And don't forget that you'll be sealing those holes back up with some sealant and possibly even a little bit of underlayment for added protection. So if you drill a hole through the roof and you don't hit the rafter, one method you can use to find out how far from the rafter that you are is using a piece of wire coat hanger that maybe about 6-inch long piece, and you take and bend the end into an L shape, and then you can slip that through the roof, through the sheathing, and rotate that L-shaped wire to see if you can feel for the edge of the rafter. Unfortunately, on skip sheath roofs, exploratory drilling isn't very effective because you don't know if you've hit the rafter or one of those pieces of skip sheathing underneath the solid wood sheathing. The final method for finding rafters is more sophisticated, and that's using an electronic stud finder. And there's a few different types we have available. The least expensive, simplest electronic stud finder is something that you could purchase from Lowe's or Home Depot, and that's the simple $50 stud finder that you can use on the inside of a vaulted ceiling to accurately locate the rafters, mark them, and take those dimensions, transfer them to the roof, and you'd of course use a drill bit to drill alongside your first rafter, leave that drill bit in the hole so you can locate it on the roof, and then you would transfer the dimensions measured from the vaulted ceiling to the top of the roof. Another stud finder that you could use is more expensive. The Bosch D-Tech 150 deep wall scan tool costs about $750, and while that's quite expensive, it's also one of the few ways that we found that we could actually locate the rafters on these complex skip-sheathed roofs that have solid wood sheathing installed over the top. Bosch D-Tech 150 scanner needs to roll on a smooth surface to make sure that none of the wheels slip. Now you can use a piece of cardboard laid on the roof, or take a piece of comp shingle and flip it over to the smooth side to give you that smooth surface. You're going to roll the scanner across the surface of the roof looking for a signal. And there's a good signal right there. Boom, there's our rafter. The final method of electronic stud finding that has some value is a thermal imaging camera. The idea is that the roof temperature when the sun first rises on a cooler day will show the rafters to be cooler than the surrounding wood sheathing. That makes sense because the rafter itself has thermal mass and does not heat up as quickly when the sun first hits the roof as the sheathing on either side. This method requires that you move fast because you only have about a half hour before those rafters will warm up and you lose that visual indication of the different temperature. One of the limitations of using a thermal imaging camera is it requires that the sun be shining on the roof, so it won't work on a cloudy day, and on warmer days it may not have much value. So as you can see, there are a number of methods for finding rafters, some that work well in certain situations but not in others. So make certain you're familiar with all the methods that we've reviewed in this video, and you'll be better prepared for any challenging roof situation that you encounter. In coming videos in this series, we'll address what to do when you miss a rafter and some of the other curveballs that you can be thrown during a rooftop solar installation.